Okay, real quick, just a few announcements that I want to cover before we get into Travis's presentation. Everybody logged in to see information about river permits, but we've got some AWC business I want to go over real quick. Welcome to the meeting, January 11th. Next slide, please. Kind of our generic announcements. AWC membership is a rolling 12-month period. So renew and get involved. We've been seeing a lot of memberships thanks to Mary McCarthy for sending out reminders to people to renew their memberships. That really helps us out a lot. We're up over 200 paid memberships, and some of those are family memberships. So that's multiple memberships. Monthly meetings vary, so stay up to date with our website and watch for the email list that's pushed out by Donna to remind us about the meetings. We had some hybrid meetings for a while, especially for Tom Martin. We even rented a big hall. That gets kind of expensive. We probably can't do that every month. And until COVID conditions ease up, it's real hard to meet face to face. And I really like being able for people out of state and out of town not to have to travel. Even here in town, you don't have to drive downtown in the dark and just to attend our meeting. You can just log in, and it makes it real easy. So stay up to date on our AdobeWhitewater.org website. That's where we post all of our latest information about meetings and events. Pool sessions, first and third Sundays, 5:30 at Sandia Pool. I don't know if we have Christine online. She could probably give us more details about that. If not, I'll go ahead. Saturday mornings also 10 to 12 out at the Rio Rancho Pool. Shane Bales runs the Kayak New Mexico sessions out there. It's $5 at the door. Anybody's welcome. The Betsy Patterson at Sandia High on Sundays. You have to pre-register for that online. There's links on our website, I believe, and you need to register by Friday. Otherwise, you may not get in. So that's an indoor pool. Rio Rancho is an indoor pool. It's a nice improvement over the years of doing Wednesday nights at JCC in the dark and worrying about weather and cold. So join us at the pool sessions. We try to have some certified instructors there, but anybody that's in their attendance can at least help you with a T-rescue or give you some pointers. River cleanup this Sunday, January 16th. There's a lot of details posted on our website about that. It's been shared to Meetup and Facebook and several other Facebook pages. The plan is to clean up at Algodones beginning at 10. That'll take a couple hours. And then I hope to launch at 12:30 or 1 o'clock. It was listed in there from Algodones and paddle down to the 550 bridge. It's a pretty short run. We'll have plenty of time. We'll clean up there as well as time permits. It's a good chance to look at the conditions of 550 bridge also before they start their project. They're supposed to start in January. New Mexico Paddlers Coalition was instrumental in getting a grant funded, along with Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District and the City of Bernalillo. And they're going to be putting in a takeout ramp above the bridge and a put-in ramp below the bridge. If you do come this Sunday, I recommend parking on the northeast corner along the ditch. The old standard parking area on the southeast side of the bridge. That road down to the river has been flooded by a low sump drain, and it's a little difficult to get down to the river that way. Also, traffic patterns hard to get out of there and into there. So if you're gonna come this Sunday, meet us on the northeast corner, park along the ditch, and we'll organize shuttle from there at 9:15 and go up and do the cleanup at Algodones. We've got 3 park rangers, game wardens that are going to be helping us shuttle garbage with their trucks. They're going to open the gate. We might even be able to carry some of the boats in their empty trucks over to the river and then fill the trucks up with trash. So hopefully we'll have a good attendance there. Next slide, please. Yeah, I talked a little bit about the park access there at 550. Take a look at the Paddlers Coalition for all the details. There's great information. Once again, thanks to Sherry Barrett for spearheading that effort and getting a $25,000 grant approved, and a lot of work provided by the city. New Mexico Paddlers Coalition is providing signage at those locations. That's our portion of the effort. So we're really striving to improve access to the Rio Grande and other rivers here in New Mexico. Supreme Court hearing. I don't know if we have Norm on that can talk about that real quick. If not, March 1st, the Supreme Court is holding hearings for arguments for and against. I don't think there's much access for public. It will be broadcast online. If you go to the Paddlers Coalition website, there's probably going to be a link there. Maybe at New Mexico Wildlife Federation, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. There's some of our people that are also involved with that case. But March 1st, it's 2 years since we initiated this writ of mandamus about stream access and private people posting rivers as non-navigable and putting up fences blocking access. This is the first major step in 2 years. So hopefully the Supreme Court will rule in our favor. I don't know if they're ready to make a ruling, but this is a big step. So stay tuned for more news on that. New Mexico River Protection Initiative goal. I put that in there. I don't know a whole lot about it other than the 30% by 2030. Each state is trying to get more access. We've had some major accomplishments regarding the Gila, regarding low flying planes for military training missions. That's been banned, I believe. There's works trying to get the Gila River protected officially as a wild and scenic river. So stay tuned for that. There's still people that want to dam it up, and that's going to be an ongoing fight. But if we can get it protected as a wild and scenic portion, it's going to be a much more difficult for them to do that. Please tune into the AdobeWhitewater.org, our advocacy page, and New Mexico Paddlers Coalition is another one. Many of the members of that Paddlers Coalition are also Adobe Whitewater Club members, and we just feel the need to put the extra effort in to fight for river access and be good stewards of our rivers here in New Mexico and elsewhere. Zoom rules, please mute yourself when not speaking. I think everybody's pretty good about that. We had a great meeting last time. Everybody was kind of telling stories, and we don't want to exclude people. We'd love to hear your comments. Best way to do that. Yeah.
I wondered before we got too far into it, if you want to make an announcement about the Chama up by Heron and the temporary dam there.
Yeah, good point. Before I introduce Travis, recently we were made aware of a road access temporary dam basically across the Mama Chama, right where the Heron River or Heron Dam drains into the Rio Chama. And one of our club members sent us some pictures of that. We sent it out to a few local people up there that we knew might be able to investigate it. They took more pictures. We reached out to Bureau of Reclamation, Corps of Engineers. We found out that dam is temporary. They're putting in a truss bridge, which will replace the cable suspension bridge just a quarter mile upstream from the dam. Anybody that's floated that remembers that Fisherman's Bridge. The Fisherman's Bridge Trail and the stairs down the mesa has been closed for several years. They haven't had money to fix it. So this is probably to reroute the trail, which will go from Heron State Park over to Ovado State Park. So they have to cross the river at some point. And rather than fix those stairs and probably fix the suspension bridge, they're just putting in a whole new bridge that might allow easier access, or at least legal foot traffic on the road from that parking area down to the base of the dam. I don't foresee any vehicle access for the public down to that area, which would really make floating the Mama Chama easy, and would probably get even more traffic on that, and it would detract from some of the wild and scenic area. But that bridge will be completed hopefully March 1st or early March, and they'll remove the earthen dam and culverts that they currently have that span the river right there. If they don't do it, the high flow in the spring likely will. So stay tuned. If their construction dates push out any, they're going to put up signage, and it shouldn't be a hard portage around that, but I expect that's going to be gone by the end of March at least, before the spring melt starts and before we start running that Mama Chama section. But thanks to one of our members for bringing that to our attention. If you're driving across the Heron Dam, you can actually look down at the stilling pond, the spillway, and see the activity down there with the new bridge and the earthen dam structure that they have across the river. So keep an eye on that, and hopefully we'll get some good spring runoff. That's not dam controlled, so it's going to be natural flow. And so far we've got a pretty good snowpack up in the mountains. I've seen over 100% for much of the river, many of the river basins. So we should have a pretty good spring up there. But yeah, thanks to everybody that was involved with bringing that to our attention. Okay. Yeah, try to keep yourself muted during the presentation. Raise your hand in the chat section. Donna has agreed to moderate for us, and she can bring things up to Travis, maybe break into his talk if somebody's got things specific about a river. The Mama Chama is one that I wish we had the pictures to show people that dam, but feel free to converse on chat. You can send messages directly to a specific person or to everybody, and we'll try to get your comments added into the presentation. I think we're done with announcements. Does anybody else have anything real quick? All right, I'll go ahead and introduce Travis Burkhard. Travis is a longtime Adobe Club member. I believe he's been on the board before. He's been very instrumental in putting this presentation together. It's kind of easy to take the presentation from year to year and just update it. And he made huge improvements to it last year. We all look forward to the permit party, where we learn what rivers require permits and how to get them, when the deadlines are. And hopefully after this presentation, we'll have a list of people that are willing to put in permits. And if you get a permit, please invite others. That's how we grow the club. That's how we keep activity and interest in the club. Travis has moved out of state, but I'm happy to see him here virtually. So maybe we can get him to come back and paddle with us at some point too. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Travis now.
So Jamie was asking if this is going to be interactive. So Travis, if you could just explain how you'd like to run it, that would be great.
Yeah, I welcome some helpful interludes, especially because I'm going to be wrong a couple times, so that'll be helpful. But if we each tell our story about every river in the presentation, we will all miss the permit deadlines, which are mostly January 31st. So a little bit of courtesy to tracking that. We all know we've had incredible times on these rivers. We have a few photos from rivers last year that we tried to add to. I was recalcitrant in trying to add photos from new members this year. So if someone has gone on one of these rivers recently, would like to add some photos in a place I'm lacking them, speak up and say, hey, I'd like to add some stuff, and email it to me over, and I'll drop in the presentation next week. This is a living document. I don't really I trust our members who have access to the link you're seeing on your screen to edit it intelligently if you want to, or come in and add to it. So hopefully one day I'm not the custodian of it. Interestingly enough, I have not yet left New Mexico. I still live here due to a curious pursuit of careers and jobs. My wife moved to Kansas. And so I may have more time to boat actually now, but don't tell my wife I said that. So yeah. All right, so here we go. So first things first, and I'm gonna ask someone else to monitor. Well, let me see here. Let me see if I can manage my windows so that I can see everything, chat and presentation tools all at the same time. I think we're there. All right, so yeah, one thing to be aware of is I remember being on the board when we decided that the club was going to support legislative action against large financial entities that existed outside our state with respect to the navigability of our Streams Act. And one of the big things that came down to me was the club has these resources and we haven't been able to leverage them for something very large in a long time. And I felt like this was an important mission, so I supported it. And that's all because we pay dues. So thank you for those of us who pay your dues. And if you know members of the community who have not yet paid their dues or should join the community, bring them on in, because the only thing worse than not voting is voting alone, which is even more dangerous. So last year when we did this party, we had an interesting look at things where I had slides that talked about the way 2021 was going to go in terms of the different responses from the state agencies. Basically, all that has done is folded down to there's not enough resources to really do the administration well. So expect your unique problem to not be dealt with in a timely manner. But for those of us who did go boating and those of us who had adult conversations about coronavirus and were open and honest with each other, good for you. Good job keeping adults and respect each other's risk thresholds, especially on these multi-day trips when we often share kitchens and things like that. And I personally support getting vaccinated. So if you've gone out and gotten vaccinated and a booster, Travis thinks you're a little bit extra rad. So my water forecast for 2022 in the West is mountain biking. I expected to have a pretty poor water year. Scott thinks we have more than 100% some of our drainages, and I hope as the winter accumulation continues, that goes on. That being said, we're seeing the Pacific Northwest right now getting pounded, and because we're in a La Nina, La Nina weather cycle, as much as you can subscribe to the La Nina El Nino Pacific warmer spot oscillation. We expect to see more water fall west of the Rockies, where most of these rivers are located, and less inbound. So some of the graphs in this chart are outdated, but they will be instrumental in helping you thread the needle in terms of when you want to find out to where you get your to put your permits. Jamie, that is possible. I see in the chat that we Jamie wants to be an opportunity to do I'm organizing a blank check. I want to talk about my permit plans for this accusation. Yeah, actually, you know what? That has been lacking from this for years. So tell you what, I will rip through some of these slides a little bit quickly, and then we will focus on that at the end. No use in doing the same thing we've done for 3 years in a row. Here's some miscellany about this. Note that Scott originally compiled this stuff, and really the main thing to look at here is that boating may lead to new friendships, life-changing events, and please consult with a friend before taking a trip and invite them. No one wants to boat alone, and your riverage mileage may vary, and any class that we talk about or difficulty in here is relative to someone's personal experience, so take everything with a grain of salt. If you'd like to see any technical data or anything like that added to this, reach out to me. If you don't see an error, let me know. If you see an error, we're going to fix it together. This is where most of these rivers are located. I did this by pulling off the GPS points from river maps. God bless their industry by their maps. They're really good. But this is where most of these rivers are located in the West right now that we apply for permits. You can see the Grand Canyon there to the right of Las Vegas, a large section of it. And then most of the river corridors between the Grand Canyon section and up into what's going to be northwest Colorado are permitted or runnable in some manner or other. And so these are permitted sections that are on rec.gov, but there are many more than what we can see here. This is the permitted river agenda. There are many more. This is the permitted agenda. There are many more in the slide deck that we want to talk about. And often I think they're more important to talk about than permitted rivers. And we should talk about the unpermitted rivers more after the third week in February when we all have our lottery results. These are some of the non-permitted rivers. If you're new to the area and you may find yourself without a permit, these are opportunities to go paddle outside of the Rio Grande and the Chama that are important to growing as a boater and stuff like that. Yeah, so find some friends, don't go alone. And we could talk about some of these. Actually, the Grand Ronde is something we're actually missing information on. So if anyone has anything on that, I'd love to get that added in here. There are some boatable sections of honorable mention in here that if you're in New Mexico and you're looking for alternatives to boat, you can get out and do some of these. These are close and these are really good. The Mama Chama we were talking about earlier with its river access. Of course, the Taos Race Course is the premier place to go practice your Class 3 skills in New Mexico. I met my lovely wife there. White Rock in New Mexico, I haven't yet boated myself, but it is, from what I understand, a very nice Class 2 trip with a portable Class 3 in a committing canyon, which is a fun part of boating, is getting out and getting very far away from resources and stuff like that. And then, of course, things to the south and more things to the north. With all these rivers, it's important to know that some of them are seasonal and they run rarely. And the Gila is one of these things. There's no permit for it, but you have to know when it runs, and you have to, this is a little hidden gem, and I actually don't have enough information about this. I usually leverage Norm to talk about this, and I haven't ever actually captured his opinion on this. But the Gila is tough because you got to watch for the monsoons and have your boat packed ready to go and kind of get on a response. So that's not a permitted river, so we'll move forward. Here's some pictures of the Gila. And Adam, keep it up in the chat there. If someone wanted to compile some of these once into a Google spreadsheet as I go through, that would be pretty rad that we could present that at the end of we could spit sharing over to you and present that at the end of the chat. The Gila is a western low flow river that is well suited to inflatables and runs seasonally in monsoon seasons. You're going to have to watch carefully for when this thing runs. But it is a beautiful stretch of river. This is on my to-do list. I just haven't been able to be ready and poised to pull the trigger because this is a rare gem.
Travis, there's also a great stretch of the Gila over in Arizona too.
I would love some information and maps about that to add to this presentation. Here's some flows from the Gila River, and you can see that, sometime around the this was, what year is this? The 2 years ago, sometime around February, the third week in February, this thing peaked up and discharged, and those are the flows that you're trying to get on, is these high peaks that'll carry you through. And this is the and then you could see these flashes in here, these sharp peaks in the flow of the Gila are the monsoons coming in. Ira, the PowerPoint is actually, yeah, it is posted. It's always posted. We can go back to the first slide here. And if you would like to copy down this link, you can actually bring up the slide and use it forever on your own.
Travis, we also have it on the Adobe Whitewater website in the menu
Excellent.
area.
Excellent. All right. So another unpermitted area in the west is Cataract Canyon. This is Moab to Upper Lake Powell. And this is a good place to get introduced to big water class 4. However, there is a penalty to getting in there. There's a lot of flat water before the big water, and then there's a lot of flat water after. But for a desert float trip, it can be pretty incredible. If you have friends with a motor rig on their raft, that's also a very interesting way to do this. There are possible ways to navigate this river, and I'm going to ask a viewer to tell me if I am loading an American Whitewater page right now. Can anyone see me changing the presentation in a web browser live?
Yes.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so one thing I found this year for planning your trips is that American Whitewater has added interactive maps. And I have not included links yet into this presentation. I found this 3 days ago. But this is a fantastic way to get an understanding of where in the world, with relatives to road and access, these sections you want to run. And they even have started to label some of these rapids. What's interesting, the thing about Cataract Canyon is up here at Moab, is my cursor viewable on the screen?
Yes. Yes.
All right, cool. The Cataract Canyon usually starts with put in at Moab, and you have lots of fun, slow goosenecks down here. And then you get into what they call the big drops, which is after the confluence. And then you get into Cataract Canyon, and then you end up taking out the lake here. And however, the reason why I chose this one to demonstrate is this is a place that is not permitted, but there are many options for a jet boat picking you up from Moab, and you can do the other leg of the green here and possibly not have to run the rapids, but you can spend time on this river and in these corridors in ways that are unique and variable because it's non-permitted, and you can get onto some of these things. It's a very, so anyways, American Whitewater has had a huge change in how they run their website and where they put rapids. Now, I wouldn't trust this map for my own river navigability. Some of the river map guides are pretty good, and I don't think you'd be able to, have your laptop out on the river, but this is a pretty great way to look at things. You see there's lots of class 2s in here that are going to be curious as flows drop and stuff like that, and more riverbed gets exposed. So yeah, American Whitewater, they get the call out for a great map here on Cataract Canyon. Scott, did you want to check in here?
Yeah, I just have a few comments. I've run that sometimes twice a year. We just took my dad down on his 80th birthday in October, and he paddled his own boat. It was a very low water trip. We had 2 rafts. We motored in. Steve Matthias joined us on that and paddled an IK through the upper section, or through the upper part of the rapids. And it was a pretty technical run in an IK. But the takeout there at Hype Marina has not been usable for probably 10 years. Everybody takes out at Dirty Devil. And even that, the lake level has gone down. It's such a steep bank there that for 4 of us pulling out 2 rafts, we chose to motor down to Bullfrog Marina, which was about 7 miles of river that we had never seen before, and then 35 miles of lake. But with just 2 rafts, we were able to motor through it in about 6 hours. So there's lots of options. Tom Martin has done some studies recently recreating historic pictures of the lake compared to what it is now. And it's really interesting if you search out Tom Martin's information.
Yeah, the ramp here, the first ramp you come to is absolutely, when I ran this many years ago, oh man, getting old enough I can't remember, 7 years ago maybe, the ramp was awful. It was de-rigging meant you unhooked heavy things and then carried them up a very steep slope. So yeah, maybe consider some more motorized options for abandoning the water at the end of your trip there.
Yeah, the current ramp, there's even rumors of a vehicle that backed a trailer to the water, and the trailer got in the water and dragged the truck down the ramp into the river.
I
So
see that as very
it's
possible.
Yeah, it's a hairball run. You can't just back a trailer down the Hype Marina ramp like you used to, but there's other options there. So don't let that discourage you.
Yeah. But user be warned, the Hype Marina ramp is not been maintained. The Salt River had an interesting year back last year where they did not allow it to run. They just were like, no, we're not, the tribe there was not doing permits. I was not able to find information on permits for this section from the tribe, but recreation.gov, which through the Forest Service should be communicating with the tribe, is saying that they can show, you can purchase permits. If anyone wants to, using the link for this trip, presentation, you can actually click these titles and they will take you to the recreation.gov permit page. So no need to search, just scroll through the presentation and click the title, and there you go. Salt River is excellent, really good scenery. I had an opportunity to run it when I was a early boater and passed up on it, and I should have. If you're scared about the class 4s in there, know that they are portageable. Some of them a little bit more effort than others, but if I was a boater who did not want to run class 4 and I was doing self-support in an IK or a hard shell, and I had planned ahead and had some bags to help me portage around some stuff, I would definitely consider running the salt and just planning on portaging around those 4s, because the rest of it is just gorgeous. And a really, really fun summer river to run. And it's spring river to run. And it's a great place to get away from the cold in Albuquerque and down into some sun and heat around like spring break for many colleges. You'll see some of these graphs throughout the presentation. The blue area is what American Whitewater describes as the permit season. So if you're inside the blue left to right, you are needing a permit. And then the flows are on here left to right. And so you notice that peak flows for the salt aren't necessarily totally in permit season, but as with many rivers, especially this year, if we have low water, you'll see that the acceptable flows will be nearer the permit period. So keep that in mind as you apply for permits.
There's also a daily section on that salt too, that you can run just the upper section. You still require the Indian permits for that though.
Yes, yeah. The Chama River is our local beautiful gym. During COVID, I actually got to run this twice. I was very lucky to pick up cancellations because out-of-state people weren't allowed in. So silver lining. But the permit changed to recreation.gov, and the permits are now due January 31st. I didn't actually find any permits that weren't due January 31st. So we see a coalescence of permits on that date, except for the Grand Canyon. And there are 2 periods of release here, April and then July. And so it's a tough permit to draw. It's a fickle flow on a weekend release. You pretty much only want a permit on a Friday because that's when they do recreational releases. And I'm not sure of the status of El Vado Dam. Does anyone out there have the ability to talk about that? I see Adam saying El Vado under construction, the lake is super low, which means the ability to supply for recreational releases is not good. So possibly the Chama having a rough year. And because it has the opportunity to be dam controlled, you'll see there's really square shoulders in this graph. The Chama is kind of at the whim of humans and not the whim of nature, but it appears that nature's been trying to take back that dam, and they're going to be doing some work on it. So that could be an interesting opportunity for you to get a permit that might be a cancellation because of dam work and we're locals, or an opportunity for expectations to not meet reality with dam work. So look out for the Rio Chama. We probably need to get some more information on that.
Travis,
So,
that Chama, I believe most of the flow, even in the lower section below El Vado, is going to be natural flow. Whatever comes down the river, they're probably just going to pass it through. They're not going to capture any water in El Vado this year. So I don't know about permit season, but try and get on during the spring flow.
that would mean the gauge you want to watch would be gauges for the outflow of, what's the lake the Big Mama Chama drops into? Is the outflow of Heron there?
The outflow of Heron adds a little bit. They might capture some water that comes from the Navajo River, actually across the Continental Divide.
Yeah.
There's a gauge at Los Ojos that we use for the Mama Chama. But if they're passing water through, then the gauge for that should be the same as the gauge below El Vado.
Natural flows on the Chama could be interesting. It could mean a more extended season in some cases. San Juan, moving up into Utah, has many takeout and put in options. It's a great hiking and float trip. In fact, I know Rick Deschler likes to go President's Day weekend annually. It's a bit cold, but it's still a great trip. There's a ton of takeout and put in options, and you got to be careful. Some of the later takeouts can get really braided and low in sand. And so you end up hiking out in the river, sometimes dragging your boat. So river mileage may vary, but this is another good place to get out of the winter cold and into some early spring heat. The San Juan runs like a desert river, kind of uncontrolled. And you can see we have seasonal spikes from monsoons in some years. But the permitted season runs from late April to the end of June or early July. Middle of July. So now those rivers are, it can be cold and windy. That's for sure, Adam. Now the Four Rivers lottery system, I'm going to talk a little bit about more because there's a lot of effort to get up here. And these are the premier rivers that we try to run, that I've been trying to run recently. And let's see here. Oh, next, forgive me. You can now apply to all of them in 1 year. The Selway, the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the Main Salmon, and the Snake are all are all part of the Four Rivers lottery system, but they're all now independent rivers, which is good. You need to get a shuttle service for them, and you need to get an Idaho invasive species sticker for your boat. And when you roll into Idaho, you will need to get your boat inspected. There's two things that need to happen in order to get on one of these rivers. You got to get a sticker, which you can do by mail. It's $7, not that hard. It arrives in an envelope. If you get a permit, just go ahead and order one. Support Idaho in their efforts to defeat the quagga mussel. And then also, when you roll into Idaho, you're going to need to get your boat inspected. And if you happen to roll through like 2 a.m., you still can't get your boat inspected. Unless the rare occurrence that they're closing the boat inspections, which are usually right at the entrances to the state on the highways. In those situations, you can have the ranger inspect your boat, but you're going to have to plan ahead for that.
Some of the sporting goods stores even offer inspection of boats.
Good to know. Good to know in case you have non-conformal plans, which many of us boaters like to do. The key is to watch the snowpack every year. The link here, I believe, is a PDF that gets continuously. Oh, what do I mean by shuttle to suicide? If you were trying to self-shuttle those rivers, you're talking 4 hours one way. For some of them, and so you want to hire a shuttle company to do that. Shuttle companies in Idaho are gonna put your car on a dirt road and do 40 miles an hour. The boat does not need to be inflated for Idaho inspection. I have had a rolled up raft. They're really more worried about motorboats with bilges. So if you show up a happy boater, you're kind, and your boat's rolled up, they may just try and stick their boat in the folds, their hands in the folds, and confirm that it's dry. I usually have mine on the trailer, and I tell them, yeah, the last time this boat was in the water was in the desert. It's since been washed then, and it's been dry for 30 days. When they hear the words dry for 30 days, they're pretty happy. So I actually have never had my boat inflated for Idaho inspection. They do even check kayaks though. Boat means boat. And they did check my wife's pack raft, which is a boat. So we had stickers for all of them. But boating in Idaho is all about snowtail, and that's because their runoff sometimes happens violently and quickly. And so if you do manage to plan, if you do manage to score a permit for one of these highly contested rivers, you need to start having expectations about safety. You might get too much water, or how much gear you can bring. You might not have enough water. In the case of some rivers, they have a sweet spot where they are easier. That's at moderate to high flows. And then above that, they're terrifying. And then below that, they're technically very difficult. Idaho is very popular. Seen in very small text on your screen is the applications over the last 10 years since the Four Rivers lottery system went to recreation.gov of applications. And you can see it's growing exponentially. We can see that as recreation and enthusiasm for it has grown in the US with pandemic. The opportunities to get some of these permits are getting harder and harder. So that's why it's important to boat with friends and talk to your friends about boating and talk to your friends about applying for boating. I was lucky enough to run both of these within both the Middle Fork and the Selway last year because I had a friend who scored both permits and then rolled them over with COVID credits. So that brings up another point of contention is what is happening with rollover permits. I do believe that most of the lottery systems have exhausted their rollover opportunities for due to COVID related disruption. However, the Grand Canyon, I believe, is still working through its COVID backlog because of the decision to delay or allow you to defer your river trip was made at the right time, that they had to roll it out 2 years because they had already run the lottery for the next year. Grand Canyon boating has a longer timeline, and when we get to that, if there's any questions, drop them in the chat. So the premier wilderness gem of the Four Rivers lottery system is the Selway River. There's about 60 launches per year. It's much colder than the Middle Fork if you've done the Middle Fork. Flows above 5 feet on the gauge should bring concern. Flows in the 3.8 up to 5 are kind of a sweet spot. It's one of the most difficult permits to draw in the US, and your permit length is determined by your group size. So you can almost stay in there actually, that's not true. That is not true. I need to change that. The permit length is not determined by your group size. Once you're in there, I think you can stay in there for almost as long as you want. So there are people who will take 9-10 days to do the Selway and have like daily AA, or they'll boat for a day and stay for 2. So it's much colder than the Middle Fork. It's more of like a rainforesty thing. You want to have a good crew in there because it is full on class 4 rapids. Consider inviting me. I would love to do it again. And the dogs are allowed on this section of river because it's managed by the Forest Service. But after running it last year, I hold the opinion that's a little bit cruel unless you got a really good whitewater boating dog. So the opportunities are there, but make good decisions for your furry friends. This is the graph of flows for the Selway, Idaho. You'll notice that the permitted season is very short because that's correlated with the runoff being in a situation that is manageable. CFS on the gauge can be mapped to feet on the gauge, and I don't have an update in that mapping in here. But for early season, but the truth be told, if you could see my cursor, I believe around 10,000 and below is the sweet spot of where things are really nice on the Selway. Interestingly enough, the Selway does have, it feel like low water in the beginning, and then Moose Creek comes in and adds what they call the moose juice. And then you basically double or sometimes triple the flow from that one side creek flowing in. And then things get pretty rowdy from then on below. These are some photos from last year. And we ran this at 4.6 on the gauge, which was just perfect. I don't know how else this river could be any better than at that level. So try to look at snow graphs and plan and hope that you can get on it at that level. But it was full on. It was some of the most exhilarating boating I've done in a long time. But absolutely the clear, pristine wilderness experience that many of us boaters look for. Speaking of clean, pristine experiences that have a lot of people on them, the Middle Fork of the Salmon is also in the Four Rivers system. It's much longer. It's 112 river miles. The camps are assigned. And on this river, the number of people on your permit does determine how many days you can stay on the river. So smaller groups can take longer, and larger groups will have to hurry down the river more. There is this zoo effect that happens at 9 to 11 days after the lottery ends. Actually, that is a typo. There is a cancellation zoo that happens. And what we're talking about on the Middle Fork is that when cancellations hit the website, it's announced. Basically, if you don't pay your permit fee, your permit gets released back to the lottery. And then eventually they get released back to the website. And many boaters on the web will look into how to pick up these cancellations when they don't make it on the lottery. It's something to be aware of. We need to go on here and update this slide. But there is a cancellation zoo that happens sometimes 9 to 11 days after the cancellation itself happens. So if you have a friend who's canceling, they may do rolling cancellations, but you need to be aware of the cancellation policy for the Middle Fork after the lottery ends. It's a really good way to snag a permit. It's a hard draw. The levels of feet on the gauge at the Middle Fork Lodge, 4.5 is hero level. That's right where you want to be. It's the sweet spot. 2.5 and below is a logistical puzzle. You're going to be bumping oars, scraping rocks, and wishing you hadn't packed 4 30 racks of beer. And 5.5 and above is getting on to I'm here for the whitewater, not for the scenery levels of enthusiasm for risk. Dogs are allowed on the Middle Fork. It is a beautiful clear water. They have amazing hot springs on the side, which will dominate your campsite selection and rugged hiking. Now, the camps are assigned on the Middle Fork, so you definitely want to plan ahead and think about the camps you want and the activities you want to do. And it does terminate into the permitted main salmon. So it is possible to get this permit and then go back to back onto the main salmon afterwards. The permit period starts typically with very high flows, which you should be aware of. Sweet flows are in the end of June and into August. And that's where most of the permit applications go for. In this time frame, the weather's also deliciously warm and dry. And at those higher elevations, it's not too hot. But as with all rivers in Idaho, snowtail is the king of the game, and you need to be watching the snowpack estimations. There are other links in this brief about where to go find estimates that are produced by water.usdea.gov, I believe. Can we slide back? Yeah, water.weather.gov. They do have estimates of what the flow is going to be, and those are estimates, and the weather's not super predictable, but they will give you an idea of what remaining supply is available given a nominal weather trend. So some more pictures of the Middle Fork. When you arrive at the Middle Fork, it is a freaking zoo. That is the boat ramp that you slide your boat down, and above there is just as ridiculous with boaters as below here. This whole thing can be very overwhelming to a new boater, but know that you want to get your boat in line and you want to get your boat in line and get it slid down the ramp. Andy, did I answer your question earlier to talk about the cancellation zoo? That was me referring to how there's a mad rush for permits returned to the website. I don't have good information on it this year. Last year, it was a rolling window, 9 to 11 days after the permit was released. This year, it might be a certain period after the lottery ends, and then cancellations will probably reappear on the website within a certain time frame. This system has had a history of having a hard time of managing permits and how they get released back to the website. So, yeah, the Middle Fork. The Middle Fork is very busy. When you show up, it might be overwhelming to get on the ramp. Just get your boat in line and be ready to assemble your boat as you're moving it through the conveyor belt of dirt up to the ramp, and then eventually slide your boat down with as much as you can intelligently rig on it, tie it off, and then go down to your boat and keep on rigging. People understand that it's busy. As long as everyone's trying to efficiently use the ramp, you're going to have a good time. Also, one thing to note on the Middle Fork is that the commercials do run sweet boats seen in the middle here. Those boats don't stop. They stop on the eddies that they call for at camp, and they are moving on, trucking through. So if you see one of them behind you, be a little bit more aware of your position on the river, because their method of getting over shallow rocks on the Middle Fork is to be heavy and slither across, and you don't want to become one of those rocks. All right, the main salmon. The Middle Fork of the salmon flows from south to north and terminates into the main salmon, which flows from east to west. And in doing so, you can turn the corner and possibly join these two permits up. The main salmon is an incredible river for larger groups. It's marked here as class 3 to 4, but I think it's a very great beginner river for beginner boaters, especially if you're with a crew that can help you pick lines. You could take many, many days on it. There's 82 river miles. The camps are assigned. The permits are reasonable, and the cancellations due on this one last year happened 9 to 11 days after the cancellation happened, that the permit would be released back onto the lottery calendar. The permit length is limited by group size. I actually have taken a dog on this strip, and it was too warm for my dog. I actually had to keep him off the sand in the afternoons because he was burning up his little paws. And there are ground bees, and dogs are not aware about being zen around ground bees. So be wary of that. It is one of the perfect family floats. It's big water, much bigger than the Middle Fork. and it terminates into the Snake. If you're really looking for a long boating adventure, you can eventually link this up with the Snake. However, it does not link up with the next section of the Snake that we're going to talk about.
Travis, there are quite a few rattlesnakes along all those Idaho rivers too. The Grand Ronde, the main salmon, the lower salmon. Be wary of rattlesnakes, especially if you got kids and dogs.
Yeah, that is like a lot of the arid hiking areas here in New Mexico. That is prime area for snakes, and the snakes are even happier because of the riparian area that supports small mammal wildlife going down to the water to drink. Below the main salmon is another boatable section called the lower main salmon, and this is pretty great. There are numerous opportunities to put in and take out here. And if you're up for just a longer adventure or need to resupply, you can arrange a shuttle to help you out and do this. There's 112 miles of, class 2 to 4 whitewater in a very deep canyon. And if you don't get a permit this year, you might consider going and boating on this section just to enjoy Idaho.
If you put in at Shoup up above Corn Creek, you can spend a night above the main salmon. My parents go up there in September and August, and they'll spend 28 days running all the way down to Lewiston.
Yeah, Idaho's really, really friendly to boaters and them wanting to extend their permits and stuff like that if you have the logistics right. And yeah, you can float very gentle water into the main with an asterisk at Kramer Creek there onto the main salmon. So the last of the 4 rivers permits is the Snake River, also known as Hell's Canyon. This is I see some people in chat talking about this. The Snake River is another class 4 trip that begins in the wilderness and then exits into a area of river that is shared non-wilderness and motorized traffic. Permit is also limited by group size. This is another river where dogs are allowed. There are a few large drops in here, but mostly class 2-3 boogie water, and a lot of petroglyphs and pictographs and history along this side of the canyon. A lot of human impact, historical and current in here that you can see. This is also a good entry to multi-day whitewater class 4. In fact, especially if you're taking new people around. This river, though, can be much warmer than the other rivers in the 4 rivers permit system. And the Snake usually has a lot of water. Now you're putting in below Hell Roaring Dam. So yeah, I think there's a Flaming Gorge. It's one of the two. You're putting in right below a dam. And so your flows are controlled by humans and not necessarily by the environment. And given that the Pacific Northwest has a lot of water this year, by this time on the Snake, you're pretty far down the basement. There's a good chance that you'll have water on this run, no matter what time of year you approach it. Very interesting. One of the few permit system that actually only allows you to apply for a limited number of permits across multiple rivers is the Yampa and Green. That's because they both exist in Dinosaur National Park, which exists in the upper left or northwest corner of Colorado. This is a pretty interesting situation because the Green is dam controlled. Gates of the Door is dam controlled, and sometimes the dam can be flowing at flood stage and makes this very dangerous to run. And other times late in the season, the dam can still be releasing and be good for a late summer trip. The Yampa, however, also in this system is natural flowing. And so you want to be very concerned about getting early season flows on the Yampa in order to make sure you can get your boats down. Now, if you're a low water boater, IK, or a pack rafter, the Yampa produces some unique opportunities for increased permit probability if you're willing to negotiate a little bit more scrapey of a ride. Like many other rivers, the results are going to be around February 16th, and they're going to be due January 1st. For pretty much all rivers, you need to apply this week. And then the first week in February, you need to apply for the grant. Like other managed river systems, the camps in the Yampa and Green are assigned, and they're typically assigned beforehand by the Forest Service. And there's not a lot of input you have into them. You can, though, make requests if you're going to go both the Yampa and Green and you're going to go lay over. I suggest laying over at Jack's Creek because there's really great fishing and you can have a really nice hike up to a fishery. For the Yampa, you could see that permit season pretty much straddles when the water is. And the early season side of permit season is when you can expect more guaranteed water. High water of the Yampa can be fun, but you will need to have good group negotiation skills because it's easy to blow past camps, as that will be the water there can be ripping pretty fast. The green here, you'll notice, has a pretty take care, Jamie. The green here has a pretty square wave look to its flows, and that's because it's controlled by a dam. So dam operations will influence the boatable flows. All right, moving on to the Green River and Desolation and Grand Canyons. These are rivers that have a little bit more of a relaxed whitewater profile. They're great floating, cruising, desert hiking trips. The permits on recreation.gov are $10, and these are a little bit early, easier permits to get. Many people will apply for Deso and Grand Canyon permits as an insurance plan to make sure they have a permit to boat in the year, because they're usually more easy to get, and they have historically had a more flexible cancellation system, or actually reservation system, where if you get the first permit, it's easier to add on people later. The Green River also has seasonal flows, as is not yet dam controlled, and May and June are the times to go, unless it's 2012 on this graph, which you pretty much could go whenever you want, especially if you want a really hot ride at 40,000 CFS there. I would expect water to be lower in this drainage this year, so trend towards these smaller lines on this graph. Adam says it was hot, no mosquitoes, and a great trip, but it did get too hot in July. Yeah, these canyons, especially Westwater 2, can be very, very warm. Westwater, I believe it's transitioned to recreation.gov, but it's BLM managed. So yeah, they are now doing permits on recreation.gov for Westwater. So we'll need to update that also. There's one noted class 4 on here called the Rumadoo Skull Rapid, which is kind of tight technical entrance, but given water flows, that might not be an issue. Given water flows, that might be an issue. So your river mileage may vary. And this is a 1 to 2 day trip. I've had this one on my list for a long time for a self-support kayak effort over a long weekend. Also up in the same Colorado River section is Ruby and Horse Thief Canyons. Also another one, the easier one to get a permit on, and that's class 1 to 2. The competition for permits here is not as high. And similar flows to the rest of the Colorado, Utah Desert River complex there in the Four Corners region. All right, so now we get on to the Big Ditch, and it's got a complicated lottery system, and you apply for your permits next year. That means it is 2022. My heavens, how fast has time gone by? And you will be applying for permits in 2023. You can take 16 to 24 days, depending upon the time of year maximum. You can do it faster if you wish. Your permits are either maxed out at 8 or 16 people. You do not have to fill them. And there's 280 river miles. But only about 10 of it is actually whitewater, although that's all you think about. Grand Canyon last minute trips are a really incredible way to get on the river. Last year, Tim Schofield there in this orange boat that he borrowed from his best boating friend ever was able to hop on a Grand Canyon trip and boat with some new friends at the last minute. The Grand Canyon is a hiking trip with a boating problem. There's incredible side hikes and things to do in that canyon, and there are many of us in the club that have over 40 trips because of old rules. They were able to do that I think would agree that there's more than a lifetime of exploration in this place. There's incredible canyons like Redwall Canyon here, Cavern here, incredible confluences with side creeks. This is the LCR River coming in. In fact, we have members of our boating community who actually do fish preservation work right here in this canyon. And every once in a while get a free helicopter ride in the canyon. So if you're interested in working your tail off for the BLM and like to spend time in a canyon as a volunteer, contact me and I can put you in contact with the individual who organizes that stuff. An interesting permit that has eluded me is the Dolores. The permits are kind of free. Just call them up for field office. However, this is a rare dam release, and given the water shortage issue in the West, I don't expect this to flow this year. Scott, you got anything to say about that?
Usually they try to schedule the release around Memorial Day, but
Okay.
they're notorious for saying, yeah, we're going to do it Memorial Day, and then they let it go a week in advance for 2 days, so everybody misses it, or they'll push it out for a week. So if it's running, you need to take the time to run up there and catch it. There is no permit per se.
This would be the section below McPhee Reservoir.
Yeah, there might be a permit for the very lower section where it joins with the Colorado down around Gateway. But I'm not aware of anything required from Bradfield Bridge down to the others. Adam may be able to add some more to that.
Yeah, Adam, there are many sections that we can that you could run in here because there's no established permit and therefore no designated proper put in and take out for the permitted section. You could run different chunks of it. However, some of the put-ins and takeouts I understand are can be an adventure in their own, especially if you get a rain event. You're not going to be able to get a vehicle in or out of some of these dirt roads. So, and there's some more information in here. And this is the outflow from McPhee. And yeah, this is a self-support trip that I've been wanting to do and have not been able to get on.
It's great to tie that in with the San Miguel since you're in the same area. Catch them both.
You're talking about running the San Miguel here and the Dolores in the same recreational driving effort.
Yeah, if you're going to drive that far, just like going to Idaho, if you're going to go do the salmon, go catch the Grand Ron, make best use to your time and your miles.
All right. A river I expect to be cranking this year is the Rogue. It's also a permit on recreation.gov. It's max group of 20, class 2 to 4. But the interesting thing about this is that there are lots of like bread and breakfasts or cabins along the way that you can pay to stay in. So the camping situation, lodges is the proper word. The camping situation is a little bit more unique compared to other rivers where it's bring all your own stuff. You'll notice that the release season is it's pretty wide over a flat part because it's the Pacific Northwest and they just have water out like a zoo. These are some pictures from Marie that she took 2 years ago. And this is from one of the lodges overlooking the river that you can stay in while you're there. I don't know if family style food is a thing anymore in these places. That might be a change in your expectations depending upon Oregon's stance on the current human malware outbreak.
One of the old standards was like a luxury $1 float and bloat where you just carry your personal gear and all the bedding, all the cooking's taken care of at those lodges, but you pay a premium for that option.
That sounds nice. All right. And one last thing about river permits is that we added this year is good communication. Once you pull a permit leads to good execution. I think the second week in February, when all these permits come out, we're going to be looking to talk to each other and plan trips. So be extra friendly to your friends first weekend in February, especially your boating friends. For each trip, we've had a lot of success with using a method of using a Google spreadsheet with multiple tabs to organize our trips. And if you're looking to do something like this, some suggestions might be the first tab would be people and boats and their allergies, because that's important for meal planning. Finance expectations, the permit fee, share costs, shuttles, how you pay, and how you plan to structure the different fees and monetary needs of your trip and how to get down the river and who has paid. No use in public shaming a deadbeat on paper. Group gear, what to bring, who brings it, and what we're going to share. Not everyone needs to bring their own 6-burner partner stove on a 2-day overnight. However, it might be nice to know that someone is bringing the primary kitchen stove, and maybe someone else is bringing a backup or a blaster or something like that. And this is a good place to have asymmetric communication where people can go in, check in, and then you might be able to have another Zoom call and rip through this thing. Meal assignments, if you're group cooking, is another way to get on here, especially because people can share your menus, so you're not all having tacos and spaghetti every other night on the river, and then granola every morning for breakfast. Although some people love that. Carpool and shuttle information. And this is one of the critical ones, well, especially in Idaho, where you don't know which company you're going to use. And there's a lot of opportunities to change or put it in takeouts, because the shuttle companies, they'll drive wherever you ask them to. So it's helpful if the trip leader or one person champions this and gets down every exact detail that you need to fill out when filling in the shuttle, the form, down to which company you're using and who the permit holder is and all the dates. And that's really helpful, as the TL can be like, hey, are you bringing your vehicle, and have you arranged a shuttle? Because as labor becomes more and more scarce, it can be an issue to call a shuttle company last minute and be like, hey, can I get a shuttle? And they're like, sorry, guy, I can't get anyone else to work. So, and then any other various, go ahead, Scott.
Travis, some companies only serve specific rivers. All River Shuttle does great. We were able to catch them on a emergency crisis situation when the shuttle service at Scotty's for the Hells Canyon rejected our trip because we had a vehicle on a trailer, and rather than allow us to pay for that other vehicle, they just rejected our whole trip. So we were left hanging, and we were able to reach out to All River Shuttles in Whitebird, which is a great company.
Okay, good to know. There's a feather in the hat of All River Shuttles. And I assume you guys were stacking vehicles on trailers in order to reduce shuttle fees, right?
Yeah, we were being cheap.
Last thing, various info. If you're the trip leader or the permit holder, things you don't want to repeat 16 times, like flow numbers, safety decisions, and other information about logistics and where you're staying. Maybe if you're all getting a hotel or something afterwards, it's nice to point someone to a spreadsheet, be like, they're asking you a question, you'd be like, it's in the spreadsheet. So, all right. And as a closeout here, reminder, friends and real friends put in for permits, and then you figure the rest out after you win. A lot of people think, oh, if I want to go, but I don't know if I can get off work. Just put in for the permit. One way, you're making a small donation to the government that runs these rivers, and a larger donation to the vendor who actually runs the permit system. But it's much better to have the problem of having a permit instead of having the problem of having no friends that have no permits. So peel out that credit card, join this club, play the river lottery, so we can have nice things. And there's a link to where to join for Adobe Whitewater. So with that, I think I am out of content.
That's great. Yeah, one more thing to add. If you happen to draw a permit, you're not comfortable with the logistics of that, just reach out to the club, and there's plenty of people that have the experience and the equipment that can help you get downriver and make a great trip of it.
Well, here's a list of the rivers that are permitted on recreation.gov that we discussed, in case you're interested in what you're going to apply for. It's important to go through and look at the flows and understand when you're applying for and your expectations of that trip and the time of year. So pair flows, weather, and your boating ability together intelligently. And if you if you do score a trip and you want some help planning it, or you want some help maybe navigating a river that is above your ability or outside your comfort zone, please reach out to the club. We got a lot of people who would love to help grow the boating community and enjoy your trip and things like that. I've applied for trips and then borrowed entire kitchens because this club is freaking awesome. So
I think I joined Jossie for a Salt River trip one year. Had a great time.
Oh yeah. That's my wife, but Jossie put in for that permit, and then because Jossie had a shoulder surgery, he wasn't able to go on that trip. So
Well, Travis, that was great. We're seeing a lot of comments in chat. Everybody appreciates all the input that you've got and the experience that you've shared with us.
I think the most important thing is to talk to your friends, apply for permits, and figure things out. I mean, there's people in chat right now like Andy, who I boated with for the first time on a river because I organized him getting on through the club. And yeah, it's amazing how many good people in this water lacking state we have that are really good stewards of the river and can add to your safety and to your enjoyment on the river. So
I think most people have a short list of people that they boated with in the past, but I always try to invite at least one new person that I've never paddled with. And usually it turns out to be a great experience getting new people on the river and new people in your group.
especially as permits become more and more difficult to obtain. Unfortunately, the only way to increase your odds of getting a permit are to play the games in large groups. So, all right, I know there was a request to do some permit organization at the club level. Unfortunately, I have to go back into work at 8 p.m. and I got about a 25-minute drive to do that, so I must sign off here. My email address is my first name and my last name at gmail.com. And this is how you spell them. If you have anything you want to add or want to reach out and have any questions, I welcome any questions from voters. Let's grow the community, join the club, and put in for permits. Thank you, friends. I got to sign off.
All right, thanks again, Travis. At this point, I think anybody that wants to stay, we can open the mic up and people can comment, share stories maybe. If people are in a bind for time, they can go ahead and log out. You can always go back to our recorded version of this presentation on our Adobe Whitewater.org website. Donna will get that posted up shortly. Travis may have some corrections to that dynamic file, but a lot of good information presented tonight. And I thank Travis and everybody that commented on this with input. I'll scan through the chat now, but if anybody wants to speak up, this is a good time.
Hey, Scott, one thing that Lori was asking on the chat was, are there maps for the lower Animas?
There's a fellow up at Four Corners River Sports named Kent Ford, and he's creating an online map. It's not published, but you can go to Four Corners River Sports, River Info, and print that out. It's about an 8-page color, shows great maps. There's only one overnight camping area, and it's just upstream, river left above Tico Time, which is a new commercial development just above the state line, Colorado, New Mexico border on the lower Animas. We happened to take a trip down from Durango to Aztec this past spring and had a great time, had one raft and a bunch of IKs and kayaks. So we had a good time on that. Not many people know about that.
Scott,
Yes.
comments on what I understand are some diversions or portages on that lower run of the Animas? Or
There
those
are
will be on the maps? They'll be on the maps.
Yeah, there are some irrigation diversions. There's only one that's got some metal in it. If you stay left, what it is, it's some railroad ties that stick up that hold other structure in place to create that diversion.
Mm.
It can be hazardous to an inflatable. It can tear up a raft or an IK, but it's pretty easy to read and run depending on the flows. But there's probably, I remember 3 or 4 diversions in that area. There's a big one down closer to Aztec that has probably a 10-foot drop. It's a pretty amazing horizon line, but it's a smooth concrete structure that dumps you down in. So it's just a fun run.
Fun.
There used to be a festival. It's only happened once, but their plan was to do it annually. Marcel Gatzenbeib with somebody up in Durango. Anyway, they were doing a fest and it was an overnight deal. There's a great campsite, KOA camp there in Durango, just upstream of the main bridge. And people would camp out there and you could run from Cedar Hill down and then sleep in your camper and then the next day run down to Penny Lane. So there's a lot to do up in the Aztec area on that lower Animas. I'm also hoping to organize a club weekend, either to the Arkansas River, maybe up to the San Miguel and Dolores areas, but those are harder to catch. The Arkansas River, it's crowded, it's a madhouse, it's hard to get camping. But we've got some members up in that area that might be able to help us out. And we've had a great time going up there, spending 3 or 4 days and run everything from the numbers all the way down through the Royal Gorge.
So, hi, I'm Elaine and I live in San Luis Valley. And there's some really sweet Rio Grande runs up this way. So if any of you want to check it out, get in touch with me. Hi,
That would be
Donna.
awesome. Yeah, thanks for the offer. I remember you saying that last month too. And yeah, the Wagon Wheel Gap area up there on the
That's
Rio
really, yeah,
Grande.
it's just class 2 for the most part. I know a lot of people that do the box, the Creed box. I've done it in a raft, but I don't feel like my skills are good enough to do it in my kayak. You need quite a bit of water to run it. So really the springtime is the only time, but I know a lot of people up here that know it, that I could possibly get you in touch with anyone who would want to do that as well. And then there's like really easy, beautiful. In the spring, there's essentially just class 1 with some ripples and waves. It's Blue Heron Rookery. So, I mean, there's something for everybody, and I'd be delighted to host any of you guys. So,
Yeah, what we can do, if you know of an ideal weekend, some dates or something, we might just.
my life is just so full now that I'm retired. You
Yeah.
tell me.
Well, we'll try to pick out some dates and do some club weekends like that and
Yeah, that'd be
organize.
fun. And there's a lot of, hi Mary. There's a lot of camping in the forest, national forest around here, you know, that's free. And I could certainly direct you all to that.
Great, I appreciate that. Oh, I see somebody posted the Animus guide on there.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
I don't know if that's his most recent, but that's what he gave me when he did the presentation.
Yeah, he did a great presentation for us last year. If you go back, I think there's a picture of a railroad bridge across the Animus River is the picture that we use for the visual for that. We've had some good presentations over the last year between Tom Martin and Kent Ford and a bunch of other people. So I think we've done really good and people enjoy being able to log in from home.
Hey Scott, I got a question about the salmon. So the salmon permit runs starting, what is it, June 20th? Right?
I don't remember the dates. I'd have to go back and look at the dates.
But it seems late, right? So can you just book, like I'm on the recreation.gov, can you just book permits before that?
I'd have to check the website. I've voted it numerous times, but my father usually sets up the permits. And like I say, there's a great day section up above Corn Creek. You can put in at Shoup or North Fork or Salmon and run all the way down to Corn Creek and spend a couple nights. Most of it is private, but there are a few hidden places that you can camp out. And then you just show up at Corn Creek, all rigged and everything, and you get your permit and camp assignments and then go on downriver if you've got your permit. Having those extra days upstream also allows you a little bit of leeway if you have problems in travel. We spent a night in Green River, Utah one time and had to forego the day section, but we were not late for our permit date. So knowing things like that about those specific rivers is handy.
Yeah. Why would people not launch before June 20th? Is the water just too cold or it's hard to get to the put in?
Early season, can be very high, especially on the Middle Fork. That road can be snowed in, forcing people to fly their gear in and or run down a smaller creek. And so early season can be hazardous due to snowpack. early season with high flow can be dangerous. It's kind of a waiting game. You really got to watch the snowpack. Of course, by then you've already got your permit dates assigned, so you can't change that, but that's when you see some of the cancellations.
Got it. Yeah, because I'm so far up, I'm already in Montana. I might try to do like a early June trip.
Yeah, the best thing would be to check out the website, look at the snowpack record flows, talk to a ranger, find out the ins and outs, and see if you can just show up and run it like the Mama Chama. The Rio Chama below El Vado extended their permit season. Everybody used to run it the weekend before permit season started. And now they've extended their permit season, forcing everybody to get a permit. So you've really got to talk to the ranger in that area to find out the specifics.
Thanks.
Hey, Scott,
Yes, sir.
could you do elementary introduction about getting permits for someone who's never done it? Like what to do, what to do with things to, we have the information about the rivers, but we don't have the information about the process.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You just pick a date. You look at the snowpack. You figure the best timing for the flow that you want. You don't want it too high on some rivers. You obviously don't want it too low on some rivers. So you pick the best flow that you think, and then you fit it into your schedule, find out the best dates for you to go. And then you go to the rec.gov website, and some of them give you the option for multiple dates, I believe, where you can select first, second, and third choice. I may be wrong on that, depending on the river. But and then you just wait. You pay your fee, application fee, and then they announce the winners. And you either get a card saying you were successful or that you were unsuccessful.
Okay. And from a fee standpoint, are there different fees for different rivers? Some of them combined. Looks like the Grand Canyon is an annual fee, and you get to apply for.
Yeah, the Grand Canyon application is very unique. I run it twice. I was not the permit holder for either of those, but that one you've got to create an account. And once you create an account and apply for dates, then you're also updated with any follow-up lotteries. If they have cancellations or other reasons they have permits come open, they post follow-up lotteries throughout the year and say, we've got 4 small group trips and these are the dates. And if anybody wants them, you've got 24 hours to pay your fee. Fees for the Grand Canyon are much higher for the permit. It's a per person type deal, and you've got to pay quite a bit of money up front. The advantage to that is they usually give you a longer lead time to prepare for your trip, up to a year in advance. Some of the follow-up lotteries are short notice, and if you've got a group of people that are ready to go in a month, you've got a pretty good chance to get on the river. They've also got a restriction on the Grand Canyon, kind of unique, that one person, I don't think you can run it twice in a year, or you certainly can't be the permit holder, but you may not even be able to go on another trip if you currently have a permit for later in that same year. So there's a lot of oddities about the Grand Canyon, and most of it's spelled out pretty clearly in their website. But you start by creating an account, and you don't even have to apply to create the account, but to apply, you certainly have to create an account.
And is it recreation.gov and then the Grand Canyon? Are those the only 2 sites, or are there other things we got to register for any of the rivers we discussed?
Most of it is migrated over to rec.gov. I remember the Salt River, you had to go to the Tonto National Forest and get a permit there, but since rec.gov has taken over it, it's kind of a one-stop shop.
Okay. And what about information about the cancellations that come up? What's the best way to keep on top of that?
Those vary by river. Like I say, the Grand Canyon will issue follow-up lotteries. Each of the websites, it's weird. Some people write programs that it's like a phone call. And when a permit comes available, their program calls in, you know, instantaneously. And those people that have figured out how to work that system end up with a lot of the permits, and people that don't know how to do it feel kind of slighted by that. But yeah, there's tricks and ways to get permits. The best way I can recommend to get a permit is get a lot of friends, and you can put in for the same date. If everybody puts in for the same date, it increases your odds of drawing for that date. If you're flexible and everybody puts in for different dates, there's advantages to that.
Great. And what's the best way to communicate with our membership as far as our plans? Do we have, is it the chat email? What do we
You
have?
can put a thread on the Facebook chat. There's other paddling sites as well in the Mexico Whitewater Otter Club. There's a lot of Facebook. If you don't use Facebook, it's a little more difficult to communicate. You could post something as a note to the board at Adobe Whitewater, and we might be able to share a post for you on the Facebook. But the main thing is just to get your name out there, especially if you have a permit. I think if you just put a post on the website, Facebook or wherever, send an email to the chat stating that you've got a permit and you're looking for people to join you, you'd probably get pretty good attendance on that.
Okay. Anything else I should be asking?
Just don't miss the deadlines. Get your applications in.
Okay. And is there a spreadsheet of what the deadlines are for each one, or just go to the links in the presentation?
Yeah, I think they're all the end of January. So Salt River used to be middle of January, but I think they've even pushed it out to the end of January. So I think they're all the end of January, but that rec.gov will give you specifics for each and every section of permitted river.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. I'm just scrolling, looking at the chats. Does anybody else have any comments or anything?
What are you gonna put in for Scott?
I've got a 3-week trip up on the Tatsunchini in August, so my vacation time's kind of limited this year. This trip on the Tatsunchini has been pushed out twice due to COVID restrictions and the border being closed in Canada. So I may not put in for too many trips. I usually try to join my parents on a trip here and there. We usually do a cataract in the fall. I still like doing a lot of the smaller rivers that don't require permits. That gives me more flexibility, the Mama Chama, the Piedra, things like that. I was fortunate to join Teresa Dorwart and a bunch of the members on a San Juan trip this last year, and we had a great time there. I did a week up in southern Colorado, bouncing around between the Gunnison Gorge, San Miguel. I hope to get on the Upper Animas one more time. I haven't run the Piedra in a while. There's sections of the Dolores that I haven't run, so those are all fair game for me.
Awesome. So no salmon this year, huh?
Probably not, just because of my limited vacation time.
Yeah. Gotta be an adult.
I used to have to alternate and do a family vacation one year and then a big river trip the next year, but I've been lucky enough to get on big rivers. Last year, I think I had 421 miles, and the longest trip was a cataract trip, which was 150, but the rest of it was made up with just small rivers, a lot. River cleanups. Oh, I did talk about the cleanup this weekend. Sunday, the 16th, we're doing a cleanup. So if anybody's interested, give me a call.
Awesome.
I'd love to get up there in Montana and run the Flathead or some of those rivers. I got
Yeah,
a buddy.
Go
I
ahead.
got a buddy up in Missoula that has done the Snake River and Salmon River with us. And he talks about all the rivers up there that are just so great.
There's a bunch of little ones. You just gotta, same like New Mexico, you gotta know when they're running.
Yeah, anybody that hasn't paddled up north, you don't know what running clear water is like. You get on a salmon or snake river and you can see the bottom 8 feet down. You think you're gonna hit rocks. We're used to the cloudy, muddy river here in the Southwest, and it's a huge difference up there. So I encourage anybody to go up and run those northern rivers. Grand Ronde is a great trip, and you can extend that all the way down to Hammer Bar on the Snake.
Yeah, there's all kinds of good ones. If you come up, let me know.
Will do.
Yeah. I'm only 3 hours away from anything.
Another thing I didn't mention was getting friends on the river. You know, if you've got extra boats, that's a good time. Start them out on something easy. Make sure they're not going to be overwhelmed. You don't want to throw them on the Piedra River in an IK, you know. But if you've got extra boats, it's a good opportunity to get your friends out and make them boaters. Looks like chat's slowing down a little bit. We've still got 13 people online. Anybody else want to chime in and introduce yourself? I see somebody up in the Chama area I met recently. Great time on the Mama Chama with them. Oh, I messed up my screen now.
Hi everybody. Excuse me, my name's Sonia. I have COVID right now, so I'm not my voice doesn't sound great. But I have years and years of experience on rivers. I was a raft guide on the Arkansas River for many years. I trained on the Poudre River in Colorado and grew up rafting. I've never been on the Grand. I've somehow just missed a couple of permits. And that's something that I'm always looking forward to. I know it's going to happen at some point in my life. And I can't wait for that day. But yeah, I don't have my own boat currently. It's definitely something I'm working on, but I also have lots of friends with boats who are very nice to me. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in signing up for, I'm especially interested in the Idaho rivers and things it's a little easier for me to do earlier season anyway, like June, May and June. But yeah, this was awesome.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. Where are you located, Sonia, if you don't mind my asking?
I actually, I just moved to Madrid. So
Okay.
yeah, in
So
between.
you're local. You mentioned Colorado and stuff. I was wondering if you've ever run the 11 mile.
I've never run 11 mile. No.
I've road scouted it. I was up there for something else, and I want to get up there and do the 11 mile.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Looks
Yeah,
fun.
no, just lots and lots of Pine Creek and Numbers and the Arkansas.
Yeah.
Many years. Yeah. Oh man. And I mean, yeah, I guess the Colorado. I've never run Gore Canyon. But a lot of other
I've got
parts of the
friends up
river.
in Eagle, and they run the Eagle River a lot.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah. It's a bit further drive for most people into Mexico, but yeah, it's well worth a good destination anywhere in Colorado. I try to take a week at a time whenever I go up, focus on one area, whether it's Gunnison or
Mhm.
San Miguel or
Yeah.
And just focus, try and explore that area for a week.
Mm,
And you really gain an understanding of that.
yeah. Yeah. Oh man, it's endless. It's so cool. It sounds like, Scott, you really know your rivers. You've been all over the place. I'm always interested to talk to people like that.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is to get people out and, even if I run a river a dozen times, if I get somebody on it for the first time, I get to share their excitement and their experience, and it's like being on it for the first time. So I really like
Yeah,
doing that.
that's so cool. Yeah. Well, I hope we get to run river together sometime.
Yeah, well, keep my number handy, especially like for these cleanups and things. Like I
Yeah.
said, I've got a few IKs and things, and I've loaned boats out. And
I
if
actually
I
have
know
a
I
hard boat. I don't have much experience in a kayak. I have a little bit though. I've been out several times. So for easier stuff, I'm pretty proficient. So like if it's like an easier river cleanup kind of thing,
Yeah,
I have a hard boat. I have to go pick it up, but
the last cleanup we did was in November, and we cleaned up at Rio Bravo, and then we went up to Central, and we put in there, and we were all filled up with trash by the time we got to Bridge Street. So we had to hustle on
wow.
down to Rio Bravo. But we try to do these cleanups. Our campaign, Jamie, started these cleanups on the first Saturday of every odd month, and
Mhm.
it's close to that. We didn't get out New Year's Day because the weather was terrible and it was a holiday, but we're
Yeah.
at least catching up in January and doing this next cleanup from Algodones down to 550 this Sunday. But you may
Okay.
not be recovered from your illness by then.
Unfortunately, I don't think so, but yeah, maybe the next one. That's so cool. That's definitely something I'm interested in helping with. So,
Yeah, we've done them on the race course, did a weekend up there and did everything from Taos Bridge all the way down to County Line and beyond. We
great.
do them at Cochiti Lake. We get a bunch of Boy Scouts out there, and that's always fun. So
Awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, I somehow have never been on the Rio. I went with some friends on the Chama this past summer, but I haven't been on the Rio Grande. So looking forward to that.
we'll stay tuned into the club, and any events that people post, give them a call. Try to get in on them.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do. Thank you. I'm gonna log off, but it was really nice meeting everybody.
Cool. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
We're down to 10. What time
Bye,
is it?
Scott. I'll see you later. I'm out.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Cody, and representing Montana up there. I'm glad you're still involved, and there's still activity down here, but I always like hearing from you.
Yeah, I was just down there. I was thinking about voting on the first, but didn't have a lot of takers. So
Yeah, weather was terrible. I was free that weekend, had several days of vacation, but the weather was pretty bad, and I didn't want to drag people down the river, and it was pretty low. Right now it's coming up a little bit. It's about, I think it'll be 500 for this weekend's cleanup.
yeah. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you, but take care of yourself.
All right, later, Cody.
Later.